About 3 days ago I posted a video titled "Can a Christian and an agnostic/atheist make the same moral choices?", which was a commentary video on a production made by the YouTuber Alex O'Connor. This was part of a longer conversation, therefore I only posted part 1. However, due to an overwhelming request from you to continue and post part 2, I decided to produce today's video. On today's section we'll be discussing deeper topics including the problem of free will. You'll find chapters down below.
With that said, let's get back to it. If Omega predicts you won't pull the lever, 5 people are positioned into the tunnel. Okay, this needs some unpacking. So you've got 2 tracks. One has an innocent person tied up and the other has a tunnel, and you can't see what's in the tunnel. You've also got this thing called Omega, which for the purposes of this discussion is a prediction machine, and it's one that's accurate. If Omega predicts something is going to happen, it has 100% accuracy. And if you don't like imagining a machine that can predict things with 100% accuracy, then just imagine it's God or something with infallible foreknowledge. So here's the problem. Before this scenario is set up, the infallible predictor makes a prediction. And if the infallible predictor predicts that you'll send the trolley towards that tunnel, it will put 5 people under the tunnel. If, however, it predicts that you'll kill that one innocent person, it leaves the tunnel completely empty. So now you're on the tracks, and you know all of this information, and it's already set up. Omega can't go and change anything now. It's already set in place.
I'm liking this even more. Because I think he's going into the idea of fate at this point. So I think we all understood. He explained it very clearly. There is a predictor. Did you notice how he gave 2 options to his audience? Is like either imagine it as a supercomputer, an ultimate general artificial intelligence that can predict everything to a 100% correct prediction, or if you prefer, think about it, if you don't like that idea, think of it as God. And of course, as Christians, we do believe that God can predict the future with 100% accuracy. Did you notice that he didn't mock the side that doesn't like to imagine the machine being capable of doing that? He just presented it as a possibility. That's one thing that I do appreciate very much of Alex, because for me, I'm okay considering both, because who knows what the heck general AI will be able to do. It doesn't offend me to think about that in any way, shape or form. But yeah, of course, I can also imagine this as the idea of, so no free will. So you connect it to the idea of free will. We'll see if he talks about it. I know that Alex O'Connor doesn't believe in free will. Like a lot of science communicators are starting to accept the idea of that free will is an illusion. I disagree. I think free will is a thing. We can go into it if he goes into it.
And nothing can be altered. So here's the question. What do you do? This is a variant of a paradox called Newcomb's paradox. Robert Nozick once said that when faced with this kind of situation, almost everybody knows, obviously, what the right answer is. The problem is that those people are split evenly, about 50-50, between which answer they think is the correct one. Here's how the problem was originally formulated. Suppose there are 2 boxes on a table, box 1 and box 2. It's some kind of game show. Box number 1 is transparent, and you can see that it's got $1,000 in it. Box number 2 is opaque. You can't see what's inside. And here are your options in the game. You can take for yourself either just the second box, box 2, or you can take box 1 and box 2. Once again, there is an infallible predictor, maybe an advanced AI, maybe God himself, but someone or something that's able to predict with 100% accuracy what you will do. Here's the catch. If the computer predicted that you would take both boxes, box 2 is left empty. There's nothing in it, and the total amount of money on the table is $1,000. But if the computer predicted that you would only take box 2 on its own, then the computer puts $1 million into box number 2. So you're stood at the table, you know that those are the circumstances.
Basically, what you choose will influence what's going to happen, because the machine/God already knows what he's going to say.
Many people, it seems like you should just take the second box. It's an infallible predictor, and if you take both boxes, you'll only get $1,000, whereas if you just take that second box, you'll get $1 million. That seems pretty reasonable, but here's the thing. The scenario is already set up. The computer can't change anything now. I mean, think about it. If you decide for yourself, I'm definitely just going to take box 2 because the infallible predictor said that if I do that, I'll get $1 million. Okay, decision made. That's what you're about to do. And because you've made that decision, the box will have $1 million in it. But nothing can change. So if you now, knowing that, just say, actually, I'll take them both, that $1 million can't go anywhere, and presumably you just get an extra $1,000. But the problem with that, of course, is that that would mean the infallible predictor was wrong about which boxes you would choose.
And it can't be wrong because it's infallible as the premise of this discussion.
But it can't be wrong. So somehow, if you did change your mind in the last moment like that, the machine would have predicted it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you ask me, if we just stipulate that the computer can't be wrong in its predictions, then I'm just taking that second box. Like, this isn't really much of a paradox to me. But I can understand why it seems absolutely ludicrous once you're there and the scenario is already set up and none of the conditions can be changed to think, well, now, why wouldn't I just take the second box as well? It's not like they can get rid of the $1 million. But I think that people who feel that way are just struggling to comprehend what it would mean to have a genuinely infallible predictive machine.
What's actually funny about this, even though I understand this is an exercise into the idea of a machine/God that can predict perfectly, the funny part is that in reality the solution to the problem is risk management, in the sense that it makes absolutely no sense to risk $1 million for an extra 1,000, so don't be greedy and get the second box only, don't even try. With that being said, once again, the predictive part of it, after you have taken the second box and therefore there is $1 million in there, I do understand. So I'm derailing a little bit, but just wanted to add that.
Hopefully you can see that this trolley problem is a version of the same paradox. If the machine predicts that you'll send the trolley into the tunnel, then it will have put 5 people there. But if it predicts that you would only kill the one, there's nobody under the tunnel. What do we do here? Well, if we send it into the tunnel, the predictive machine will have put 5 people in there. So that would be the wrong thing to do. So let's only kill that one person.
That's, of course, would be the best, but then now I see where he's going.
Okay, decision made. We pull the lever, we kill the one innocent person. But hold on, we know the conditions, which means knowing that the tunnel is empty, we've decided to still kill that one innocent person.
No
but if you
out.
do know that, if you know the tunnel must be empty, and you also know that the machine can't do anything now, the scenario has already been set up and nothing can be changed, why would you kill the innocent person instead of sending it through an empty tunnel? Well, okay, I'll just send it through the tunnel then.
And now there are 5 people.
But if the machine predicted that you were going to do that, then it would have put 5 people in the tunnel and you'll kill 5 innocent people.
Yes.
So you should definitely run over the one person. But if the machine predicted you'll run over the one person, the tunnel would be empty. So you should send it through the tunnel. But that would mean that you should send it to the one person. But if you send it to the one person, that means that the tunnel's empty and you should send it through the tunnel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a paradox.
It is.
And of course, this paradox leans really heavily on the concept of there being this perfectly infallible predictive machine or being, which maybe because of these kinds of paradoxical outcomes, we might just say that such a being or such a machine is just impossible. But look, if you believe in God and you believe that God is omniscient, then God is this kind of machine. He's a perfectly infallible predictor. If he predicts that something is going to happen in the future, it's guaranteed to happen. Famously, this brings up some difficult considerations around human free will. If God
you predicted it, guy. There we go. We've got a predicting machine here in the comments. You said it was going to be a free agency. And it is. Yeah, by the way, when it comes to the paradox, I would still pull the lever on that one as well, because there is no way to beat the machine anyways. And so it's the only way to guarantee that you don't actually off the other 5. And the simple fact that as a reaction to that, because I made that choice, now the tunnel is empty, great, but it doesn't matter at that point. Okay, well, let's see the free will section.
God knows to happen. Famously, this brings up some difficult considerations around human free will. If God knows what I'm about to do in 5 minutes with 100% accuracy, am I really free to choose to do something else? If I were, then that means I could do it, but if I could do it, that would mean I could make God wrong about something, and that doesn't seem right.
Okay, let me put it this way. The presence of a perfect predictor, whether it be a machine or a god, let's consider God for a moment, someone who knows what will happen in the future, including yours, someone who knows that right now I'm going to grab this Pepsi, and I'm non-sponsored, and I'm not going to grab this water, that does not mutually exclude the possibility of my own free will to take that Pepsi. I don't think his prediction precludes the possibility for me to have free agency, and I'll tell you why. But I want to see the way he defends it first.
There's been loads of discussion around that problem, and I think it highlights the weirdness that comes about philosophically when we introduce a perfectly infallible predictor. I mean, situations like this might...
Okay, well, let me respond to that because I think he's wrong. when it comes to that, and it's well argued though. As I say, I love the way he argues, but here's how I'm going to defend the idea of free will in connection, philosophically speaking, and logically speaking, in connection with the idea of a infallible, omniscient God. So a God can, with 100% accuracy, know what's going to happen in the future, which is, by the way, part of core doctrine in Christianity. So we have to approach this as Christians, and because if we dodge the question, then we're not being honest intellectually. That is absolutely part of the doctrine. Okay, let me tell you why. So what is free will? Free will is my ability to freely choose between wearing this mask or not. That's free will. God knows what I'm gonna do. He knows, for instance, that now I'm going to wear the mask. Does the fact that God knows make it for me impossible now to exit this fate that has been generated by his ability to see the future, and therefore I'm not actually free because it has been decided even before I was born? God knew that or a machine if you prefer, knew that I was going to do that, and therefore now I have the illusion of free agency, but the reality is that I have no other possible outcome than taking this mask and putting it in front of my face, because if I did and I actually chose not to wear it, that would make God wrong, and God cannot possibly be wrong. Therefore I don't actually have the choice. The apparent logical inconsistency of this statement is due to the way it's presented. Imagine this scenario for a moment. My father, earthly father, not heavenly father, my dad knows me very well because I'm his child. He knows my interests, my talents, what I like, what I dislike. Now imagine for a moment that someone goes to my dad and tells him, hey, Raffaello, Metatron, but Raffaello, your son, is now about to enter a room. In this room, there is a beautiful medieval suit of armor. And on the other side, there is a football, but it's signed by the best football players in the world. You could take one, you can't take the other. So if you choose one, you're not getting the other. Let's say that they are equally valuable when it comes to price. Can my dad predict what I'm about to do? I'm going to say yes with 100% accuracy. In fact, that's my father. I think you can predict that, noble ones. Never mind my dad. When it comes to my dad, his ability to predict what I'm going to do is actually more extensive because I'm his child. But does the fact that my father is predicting that I will absolutely completely ignore the freaking football and footballer and take the medieval suit plate of armor, does the fact that he knows that and is capable of predicting it remove the freedom of choice that I have to take either the ball or the suit of armor? No, it doesn't. Even if we don't put a God for a moment in this discussion, it's just that he knows me so much and so well that he knows what I'm about to do. This is just an example with my earthly father, who is still limited. He's a human being, and of course there are things he may not know about me, about my biology, about whatever the heck. But now let's transport it into the realm of the godly and the divine. God is still a father from our perspective, and even if you're atheist, just for the sake of argument, I'm asking you to kind of look at this for a moment. Just for the sake of argument, give me this one. God is a father, but he's a perfect father and he's a divine father. So he knows you better than you can ever know yourself. Biologically, chemically, spiritually, internally, everything. He knows things that we can't even imagine. Therefore, he's capable of predicting everything that we're going to do up to a 100% accuracy. But in the same way that my father's knowledge of me and my passions and proclivities and just the way I am did not remove free agency from what I was about to choose, because that choice still comes from me. Likewise, God's full knowledge and understanding of his child and the fact that he can then predict what I'm about to do does not take away my freedom of choice in an even more sensible way, because he knows even more. That's the way I would respond to the problem of free will in connection with an omniscient entity. Just as a matter of logics. I'm not even going in necessarily into the religion, because clearly you can tell me, but I don't believe there is such a thing. That's fine. I respect that. But from the point of view of the discussion that he has presented, I don't think that the two things are mutually exclusive. It really depends how you word it.
Now, in order to, excusing the pun, predict some of the possible answers and counter-arguments that some of you may put to this position of mine, you could say that yet since God is the one who created you, and due to the fact that choices are a natural chain reaction of your personal proclivities and nature, then isn't he still forcing in a way and removing your freedom of choice by the simple way he has created you having those specific tendencies and interests? Now, this goes into a deeper level, and we would have to go into doctrine rather than pure logics. That is because in order to find the answer, then I would connect it to the idea of a soul, a spirit, or a conscience, if you will. A naturalistic or materialistic worldview only tries to explain your interests, proclivities, and natural affiliations as a result of your biology. And due to the fact that you have no control over the way you were born, it being a series of random chain events in said view, all your choices are predetermined and there is no free will, as they are dictated by your inner biology. This, however, is countered, at least in my worldview, by the idea that we are the result, or our desires are the result of a connection, an overlapping between the biological aspects of our nature, the chemistry within us, and the spiritual self, which would be our soul or the conscious part of us. And the fact that these are not one and the same is often represented by the fact that we have to many times struggle against the natural desires of the flesh. If they were the same, why is there a struggle between the mind and the body? While the body is a chain that moves and pushes us towards certain desires and proclivities, some of which are good, some of which are bad, the mind is the true agent that has freedom. I'll just leave it at that for now. Happy to make a dedicated video and go actually deeper into it.
Harrison says, but he's not infallible. We're talking about my dad. Yeah, he's not infallible, but I'm telling you, indeed, but of course in this discussion God would be. But regardless of that, yes, my dad is not infallible, but let me tell you that much, he would not fail that one. He would not fail that one. That one he would not fail. So yeah, that's the way I would respond to this hypothetical. What if the armor is not segmentata? Same, you give me armor, I'm going to choose the armor, my friend. And that's simply because of personal interests. Maybe some of you love football so much that you would absolutely get the football. Or maybe we can come up with a scenario where both things are enticing. And then in order for us to really understand and predict with a very high degree of success what you would choose, well, you'd really need someone who knows you better and better, which will eventually, we can make it as complicated as we want, but it will still lead to the fact that in this discussion, in this hypothetical, the predicting machine or the God are perfect predictors, and therefore, because they can know everything, that's how they predict, because they know you so well that they can predict. Yeah, like for instance, Space Monkey saying, what if there are two different armors? Then you would have to know me and my personal tastes better in order for you to predict successfully which one I'm going to choose. Like for instance, imagine one is historically accurate and one is not. That already kind of gives, I think you can predict that one. And again, we can make it as difficult as we want. The increase in complexity just demands for a higher complex being to be able to successfully predict 100% of times. But then again, we are discussing a God or a perfect machine, so that's already a given. Yeah, and of course, IX says, but your dad could fail if asked to predict the decision years away when you were 1 day old. True, absolutely. Thing is, God wouldn't in that discussion, or the machine, if you prefer, because they can see things, like imagine, like God knows everything, or a machine that understands you at a biological level in ways that we cannot comprehend would know what you would do in that scenario. But then again, you can, of course, agree with him if you want. Doesn't matter. I'm just presenting my counter-argument. And then you can choose which one to you makes more logical sense. Okay, cool. Let me double check that I didn't forget any super chat.
When we introduce a perfectly infallible predictor. I mean, situations like this might just demonstrate the impossibility of perfect predictor machines in a world where free will can exist, or alternatively, the impossibility of free will in a world where perfect predictor machines can exist. That would mean it's just up to you which is more plausible, the existence of free will or the
third option,
existence of a perfect predictor machine, because the existence of one might rule out the existence of the other. For me, again, it's relatively simple. If we just stipulate that the machine is 100% accurate in its prediction, then yeah, you should kill that one innocent person. That seems relatively obvious to me, but as Robert Nozick pointed out, there'll be about half of you listening going, What are you talking about, man? You should obviously send it into the tunnel. But I don't know. Let me know what you would do in the comments.
I don't think it's going to be feasible. We can try it, but I think everyone up to this point, what you explained it, I think the people that say, no, what you're talking about, send it in the tunnel, didn't understand the sort of premise of this discussion. So I don't think it's going to be 50-50. But then again, you can tell me what you think. I would say that everyone who understands the logics behind this and the premise of the machine/God that can predict everything, then would off the one. Isn't it interesting, though, that we disagree? We disagree on free will. We disagree on the impossibility of a omniscient being in the presence of free will. And yet we are still coming to the same conclusion. Pull that freaking lever. I think that's fascinating. I think that's fascinating. And I also think there is a reason why. In my belief system, there is a reason why. Even though we have different ideas, different opinions, different everything, and we believe in different origins of our morality and ethics, yet we overlap. And I think there is a reason, and I'll share it later. Not because I'm not trying to do a catch, it's because I want to continue the video and I want to stop interrupting him, but I will tell you what I think. But we do agree so far.
Let's boost that engagement. Okay, in this one, a trolley is heading towards one person, and if you allow it to kill them, your memory will also be wiped, so you won't remember what's just happened. If you pull the lever, then the trolley won't kill anybody, but it will make you think that you've killed somebody, and you'll live the rest of your life with that guilt, thinking that you've killed someone. No one actually dies, but you'll believe that someone had died. Now, I'm proud to say that this particular trolley problem was posted years ago to a Trolley Problem Memes Facebook page, and the person who made it said that they were inspired by one of my old podcasts where I brought up a similar dilemma, so thanks for that. And what this basically boils down to is, would you rather kill an innocent person and then immediately forget about it forever, or not kill an innocent person, but live the rest of your life thinking that you had, and live...
Okay, this is fascinating because to me, it's this. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. And this may be one of those scenarios where we disagree, because for me, it doesn't matter the way I feel, because life does not represent everything there is to it. So even if I forget, and I kill and I forget, live my life happily, but when I die, I will be judged upon that. And so not only I don't want anyone to die, I don't want, so even if there was no God, just for the way I am, I would rather know before, even though I forget about it, it doesn't matter to me. Even if I remove the religious section of it, just the way I think, I would say, no, I will not kill anyone, and then the machine is going to make me think that I did. I'll live through my life like that, but at least I know now, even if I don't later, and it's going to give me trauma, at least I know now that I'm not going to be the cause for someone not being able to go back to their children or to their spouse. No question. But once you add the religion to it, then there is no way that a religious person could say, oh no, I choose this one because I forget and who cares, because as a religious person, I still believe, yeah, but God knows. And so at that point, as a religious person even more, this option becomes absolutely impossible for me. Let's see what he thinks.
Living with that guilt. Here it's important to separate two questions. What would you do? And what should you do? I think most people confronted with a situation like this think the right thing to do is sacrifice your own psychological well-being and keep the person alive. But when people reflect on what they would do given the choice, I think a lot of people admit that they just wouldn't be able to put themselves through that. And if you are feeling a bit torn about this one, it is worth remembering this is also a trolley problem, meaning that you don't exactly kill the person, rather you just allow them to die by not pulling the lever. You might still think that's a really bad thing to do, but it
doesn't make any difference, to be honest to me.
It might not be quite as bad as killing them proactively. So is it permissible for the sake of your own psychological welfare to kill an innocent person?
For me, no.
Worded like that, most people would say no. And like I say, when asked what you should do, I think most people that I ask this to say that you should save the person and live with the guilt for the rest of your life. Just put up with it. But if that's the case, it does tell us one interesting thing, which is that ethics seemingly isn't entirely reducible to what's good for our own selves. The reason this is important is because some meta-ethical theories try to prove that we should care about other people because caring about other people is in some way good for us. Like a lot of people think that ethics is just about well-being, and they say that's just kind of a brute fact. Well-being just feels good. This is kind of what Sam...
I agree, Daniele Fabbro. You say there are no excuses for killing a person, innocent or guilty. Well, do I agree? In self-defense, I mean, I think there are some excuses. If someone enters my home and wants to mess with my wife or kid, yeah, double tap center and mass is what I'm telling you. Castle doctrine, 100%, and I think that's fine. But then again, yeah, I understand that there are plenty of... In this specific scenario, maybe we're discussing, then I can understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. Yeah, your mental well-being is... The difference is massive. I'm like, yeah, I'm not taking out a person like that and committing a murder just because I don't want to go through the trauma. And even more so considering the fact that to me, life is just a blink of an eye in comparison to eternity. And there will be repercussions in eternity. Again, not because I'm scared of hell, but simply because I'm scared of my personal mental and spiritual development in the presence of the God that I want to return to, possibly in the best way that I can. So it's deeper, I think, but in general, let's see. Sam Harris, what is he going to say? And I do want to say what you guys think. F's sake, government, why are trolleys so dangerous? People keep dying. You're absolutely right, Devil Ray. What are they doing with these trolleys? Goodness gracious. I don't think Alex is a villain. Black Feathers, he looks like a good guy to me, in fact. If anything, it would be lovely if I could have like a long, deep conversation with him, camera off or camera on, doesn't matter, and I could claim him as one of us. That would be fantastic if I could. I don't think I can, because I don't think human beings convert. In my position, it is always God that converts. But I would love it, because I think he's a great guy. To me, it looks like a really nice, really reasonable, very intelligent individual. That's why I like watching his videos and seeing where he stands on these topics.
Sam Harris does, right? He says, if you disagree that pain is bad, just go and put your hand on a stove and see how long you can hold on to that belief. And you might say to Sam Harris, as I did for about 3 hours straight, okay, I think my pain is bad for me, so to speak, but then why should I care about other people? To which one response might be, well, if you don't care about other people's well-being, they're all going to suffer, and it's going to make society worse, which in turn will make your life worse. In fact, that is basically what's...
It's a little bit of a self-centered answer, though. I would say that whether you want to say that comes from a good God, or whether that comes from a natural evolutionary trait of caring for other people, we know as a species we have the ability to feel someone else's pain. We do. We can be, some of us more than others, and some of us definitely less than others. But in general, on average, we have that ability. Even with animals, if I see my dog that is like whining, I'm like, oh no, what's wrong? Like immediately. I go into that immediately, and I want to do my very best, even if that doesn't have necessarily a reward for me. It doesn't matter at that point. It's just something we have innately. And I would say, luckily, unfortunately, some of us don't, and empathy, exactly. And oftentimes, those who don't tend to be in power. Look at 20th century political totalitarianism. I wish there was a way to avoid that, to be honest, but here we are. I don't need to be told, oh, but if you care about other people suffering, then there will be a beneficial aspect, or a return to it. I don't need that. I'm not saying that that's his point. I'm saying to whoever would use that point, I would say personally, I don't need it. Maybe you want to use it as a way to explain why it's hardwired in us, because there is I guess if you look at it from the evolutionary pattern, then you need to find an actual beneficial reason that could give us an explanation as to why we evolved that way. Of course, if you remove a creator, if you put a creator, then he did it. He put that in us. But if you remove the creator from his worldview, and I want to try and look at it from it, then I guess that's why they try to explain it from an evolutionary perspective. Well, what is the evolutionary benefit from caring for other people? Problem with that is I think it does reach a limit, because at one point it's difficult to really explain everything from an evolutionary perspective. I can understand caring for people who are alive, but why do we still love and care for people who are dead? There is no evolutionary benefit to that. They're gone, and yet we still care. Is it a remnant? It was something that we couldn't be biologically removed from. I mean, we are pretty complex when it comes to what we find awkward or not. Yeah, the social animal aspect is something that usually they present. I understand, and of course we see it slightly differently. But as I say, whatever the reason is as to why we care, we do. And I think at this point, we don't even need to have a reason that could benefit us so we can gain something from it.
Sam Harris said to me when I raised this objection. Take a look.
I mean, the first answer to your question, why should you care about other people, is really prior to the question. You can just notice that you do, right? That like you this is your default mode if you're not a psychopath. And there's a reason why that is, because so much of what's good in life is born of your entanglement with other people. I mean, we're deeply social creatures, and if you're going to go live in a cave, well, then the conversation might change a little bit. I mean, a moral solitude is its own thing, and we can talk about that. But given that most of us have to and want to interact with other people, I think we will find most of the time that we actually want to interact with people who are not miserable, right? We don't want desperate, miserable people crowding our door. We want people who are filled with joy and creative energy and have good things to say and interesting things to say. They have the disposable wealth and time so as to do beautiful things that we appreciate. Like when you open Netflix, you want to see good shows, not terrible shows. At least you want.
I don't know, sir. Negativity attracts a lot of click. I'm going to say that from the perspective of a content creator, but if I don't know about that. It's a little generalizing. Don't want to strawman the man, but just in case, I may have misunderstood him here. So if I did misunderstand him, I apologize profusely, but I'm just going to say that if I make a video and I tell you nice things that medieval people did in 12th century, it's going to get 16,000 views, and if I make a video horrible things that medieval people did in the 12th century, it's going to get 80,000 views. I'm just saying. But maybe I misunderstood him.
I see some shows, and that presupposes the people who have the free time and energy to make shows, right? Because like you want to be entertained by happy people.
So okay, maybe the reason that I should care about other people's well-being is because I want to watch good shows on Netflix. But a lot of people look at this and say that's incomplete. It may be true that other people living good lives is good for me, but that's not why I care about their well-being. Okay. It's not all self-interested.
Exactly.
I feel like I should care about other people because that's the right thing to do, not because it's all about me. And one way of demonstrating that is with a problem like this. If we can just stipulate that this is an isolated incident, it's not going to have any further effects on society or anything like that. No one's going to know about it. You just either kill someone and then forget, or don't kill them and live with the guilt. What should you do? I don't understand how someone like Sam Harris, or with Sam Harris's worldview, could possibly say that the right thing to do is to not kill them and live with the guilt. Now, of course, I think if I asked Sam about this, he would probably say that killing the person is wrong. I just don't know how he would justify it. Maybe he would talk about the societal effects. Maybe he'd talk about Netflix. I'm not sure. But I really think that in this isolated scenario, if all the conditions are met, a worldview like his commits you to the view that the right thing to do is to kill the person. So maybe if you think that you shouldn't kill the person, despite the psychological harm it's going to bring you, you just learned something interesting about a point of disagreement between you and Sam Harris. Now, of course...
So I agree with him, not Sam Harris. Up to this point, me and Alex have made the exact same decisions, even though we got to them in completely different ways. I find that fascinating. Fascinating. Metatron stopping in before leaving for church. Today is the solemnity of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Thank you very much, Talis, and I hope you have a great time at church. Thank you for being here. Appreciate. Fascinating stuff. Higashi Martial Arts, thank you for the support. If this gets 10 likes, can you put the classical guitar intro on your next video? Missed that intro. Oh, you mean like the really old school music that I used to use? Like, what was it? Dun, 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 dun. You're talking about that one, right? Yeah, sure. I can. Fine, I can do it. You're a good supporter, man. I can do that. If I remember, though, if I forget, actually, not tomorrow, because tomorrow's video has a sponsor. It's already. I can't do it tomorrow, but I'll do it soon on a video. I'll put the old school intro if that's what you were talking about. I can promise you that. If I do forget, since I'm always live, kindly remind me. Thank you. Civis Awe. I've been studying Latin for a few months now, translating text on paper. Because of your videos, I've been really eager to learn. My native language is Portuguese. I've been very satisfactory. I love that. And if you're working on, as you say, Latin, but if you're working on classical Latin as a Portuguese speaker, you still have some conservative elements of your native-like pronunciation that you will find still in Latin. For instance, as you probably know, if a word finishes with an M, then the M is nasalized. Whereas as a modern Italian, I actually had to unlearn that, because I would read imperium. I'm exaggerating it, but it's imperium. It's like a nasalized sound, and I think people who speak Portuguese have that naturally. So fantastic. Yeah, that was the one. Okay, no problem, Higashi Martial Art. I'll do it. I post every day, 30 videos a month, 20 streams a month. That's 50 uploads. So yeah, I've got a lot of space to do that. Yeah, it's classical. Fantastic. Well, all the best of luck to you for that. Let's continue.
Of course, I'm not Sam Harris. I might have misrepresented his views by mistake. He's also not an ethicist primarily, and there are all kinds of ethical worldviews that don't rely on assumptions like this. But I just wanted to point out that if you think that this is an obvious ethical dilemma, which many of you will do, the obviousness that you feel might help you to work out why it is that you agree or disagree with a variety of meta-ethical theories. Like, some people will look at this and say, honestly, mate, I don't really understand this should and shouldn't language. I don't think that makes much sense. The only thing that exists is what I do and what I don't do, as a matter of fact. And in this case, I don't want to live with that, and I just would kill the person. That kind of person might sound really callous, but they're also being really honest and might give us an interesting insight into the psychology of people whose ethical worldview is either non-existent or essentially egoistic. And if we think there's something wrong in what they're saying, if we're not willing to just go, fair enough, man, yeah, you do your thing and I'll do mine, if we want to say, no, that's the wrong decision to make, we've now got a challenge ahead of us, which is to justify why they're wrong. You might say,
I would think they're wrong. Their choice is wrong.
But you're taking an innocent life. And they say, so what? I don't care. And that doesn't...
Well, okay, someone says that. I won't interrupt you, but if someone says that, probably sociopaths.
Doesn't shake your belief that it's wrong to take an innocent life, but it makes you realize that not everybody thinks that's obvious. And if you actually try to justify it, it's a bit harder than you might have thought. Like, yeah, why should somebody care if they just don't? Well, because it's just the decent thing to do. Yeah, but what does that mean for somebody who doesn't have the same idea of decency as you do? Like, what is the actual basis for your view that there are certain things that are right and certain things that are wrong, regardless of how you feel about it? And really, that's what all of these problems are about. Philosophical thought experiments get a lot of flack for being a bit silly and convoluted. It's like, this is never going to happen in reality, so why should I care? But the point of these thought experiments is not to prepare us for the off chance that we might one day come across a real-life trolley problem someday. Of course not. The reason that we use these examples is to try to work out what ethical principles we're living by. What are our ethical assumptions? Why do we think certain things are right and wrong? What do we think is right and wrong? And are we justified in those beliefs? So in some sense, these problems are not really problems at all, in that they're not supposed to be solved. You're not supposed to work out what the right answer is. Instead, you're supposed to just see what you happen to think the right answer is and learn something interesting about yourself. And I want to learn lots of interesting things about all of you. So do let me know what you think about these trolley problems in the comments.
I just did it, but not in the comments. Thank you very much, Alex O'Connor, for sharing a fascinating... Man, that was 20 minutes. Well, of course, for us, it was... How long did it take? An hour and 42, because we've taken time to kind of discuss. But I have to say, I really liked the video. I don't know about you guys, but I thought this was fascinating. And what I kind of expected this, because I know, to me, Alex O'Connor seems to be a very decent individual, and I think there are a lot of aspects of morality that overlap, but I didn't know if there was going to be any section of this where the fact that we go at morality and ethics from such a diametrically opposite positioning, then I didn't know if there would be a situation where I was like, no, that's the right thing to do, pull the lever, and he'd be like, no, don't pull the lever. That would have been something that I kind of expected to happen at least once. It never did. It never did. So here's my position, and then move chat in front of the screen, we talk. But here's how I personally justify that. Do I think, in my worldview, I think, of course, that morality comes from God. With that being said, I do not believe that atheists cannot be moral without a belief in God. I don't believe that. I know that there are people that do, and I disagree with them within my side of the Christian side. And the reason for that is, once again, this innate conscience that we have. Unfortunately, not everyone has it. There are the sociopaths, but they're usually the exception to the rule, at least when it comes to percentages within any population cluster. And so when it comes to the general public, and in this case, me and him, we both have this conscience. We both feel, oh no, that's the wrong thing to do. I don't want to make someone else suffer. And even though the way I justify that, I think we are equally moral. I don't think that I'm more moral than him because I believe that my morality comes from God and he doesn't. I don't. In fact, for all I know, I don't know him, but maybe if we were to be so transparent on everything, maybe he's more moral than me. That's possible. But what I want to say here is that I still believe, in my worldview, that his morality, even though he doesn't believe that it comes from God, I think that that conscience still comes from God. And it's in fact one of the ways in which we resemble our parent, heavenly parent, because he's the maker. So just like an earthly child looks like his parents, we look like him every time that there is something good about us, because he is the perfect good, is the infinite good. And so that's something that we inherited as his children, because we are divine in a way. And so to me, he can be moral, even though he doesn't believe it, because the fact that he believes or not doesn't change from my point of view. Some of you don't believe that, but I'm just sharing my point of view. I think he can absolutely be moral because of the fact that he has got this scintillam Dei. He's got this aspect of him that he, as a child of God, inherited. And that's the way I justify it within my belief system. But now it's your turn. What do you guys think? Let's see what we've got.